Welcome back to the Tailosive Tech Podcast, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a week for you guys, but for us, it's been not that long. This is one of our quickest back-to-back.
It's been so long since we've seen you, Randy. How are you?
I miss you.
We're banking episodes now. No, you're talking about EV. I left in EV. I stayed for all of tech. I'm not sick anymore, so there's that, you know.
You're feeling better?
I'm feeling better, and so is Sage. Unfortunately, my wife, on the other hand, is a little sicky right now.
Oh, it's going around.
Yeah.
Hopefully it doesn't recycle.
Do its cycle.
Just like all the recycling of everything that Apple and Samsung is doing now with parts and everything.
Before you try to
Segue
segue into that, before you do that, I just want to say that there are
Nice. 3
certainties in the world. 1, taxes. 2, death. And 3, if you're a parent, you will get sick off of some weird stuff, and there's a good chance things will cycle around, like Apple and Samsung and Google.
I thought you were going to say in 3, an iPad is an iPad and nothing more.
An iPad has iPad
Cannot be
OS, and there will
expected.
never be more. No, Drew. No. I'm gonna push back on that. I think Dub is going to, even if we get this is how low the bar is. Even if we get a new skin, and it's that new like Vision OS type of skin for iPad and iOS, that for iPad alone will feel like it's like, oh, it's a PC now. People will say. So I think we're okay with that. I will even go as far as to say that I feel, don't know why, because we haven't got new iPads yet, but I think we're going to get a calculator app. There.
You got to quit this.
Hope?
It's too much hope, sir.
You want him to quit hope
I've
for
had
a
enough
calculator
of
app? I'm here with Randy, honestly. I think we're getting a calculator app this year. I'm feeling good about it.
Yeah.
I can't believe both of you.
You just don't do that. Don't give me hope. That's what you're doing.
I'm not going to tolerate this. Apple gave up on me, so I gave up on them. You know, we're not budging on the iPad OSs for babies. You know, as long as we have Swift playgrounds instead of Xcode.
I know what you
not
want an
going anywhere.
iPad to be, but that's not what general population GP wants an iPad to be. I agree that I think there will be a calculator app, but to go as far as say coding, that's like saying it's going to replace the PC, or in this case a Mac. It's never going to replace a Mac. Just like Vision OS or Vision Pro or Vision whatever is never going to replace a Mac. They will all have their own individual lines with some overlap, yes, but they will not cannibalize to the point of making one obsolete. Us thinking that like, oh, just like the iPod got killed off by the iPhone. That was a Steve Jobs thing, and the iPod has been around longer than probably a lot of our listeners have been alive. So that doesn't count. Today, under Tim Cook's era of reigning this beautiful beast of a company and seeing all the products that come out, it's all about that fragmentation within, quadrants of their own, of like certain tiers. They're not meant to ever overlap or like cannibalize and stuff like that. So the iPad will always be an iPad, but that doesn't mean it won't be good. Just it's not going to do coding and stuff like that for you, Drew. Even though you don't code, I know the point you're making. And yes, Final Cut and Logic require subscription, and there are even limited versions of that to what the Mac version is. But
What a spit in the face that was.
that
Remember
that
when
is
everyone said,
I don't like that.
now it's a membership, so it'll get updates. It'll
Yeah.
get improved over time, and then nothing happened.
But for the people, like, you just might have to accept, Drew, that it's not for your you're an old soul, and it's supposed to be for your generation, but it's not for you, but it is for people like you.
I accepted it.
Yeah.
That's why I sold it.
Nah. But other people
Gone.
like you, younger than you, your audience, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, they love those things. I see it in my Discord. I see it in your Discord. I see it on Twitter all the time. They love those
They
things.
love iPads, and they love Bluey. That's their two.
Hey, I love Bluey. Bluey's great.
I love Bluey. Mike, did you watch that final episode, that 30-minute episode? Completely tech related, but tears. Just tears, man. It's Bluey's a beautiful show, man. All right, anyway, no. All right, we're done. Go ahead. You talk now. I'm done.
I heard Humane had a lot of tears after watching a 30-minute episode of the Marquez show. What's his channel called again?
The Company Killer?
Yeah, I was going to say, is this the new norm? Marquez pretty much makes a video saying that this is the worst tech product or whatever product ever reviewed. And then the company goes under or something. Is that the new trend for like his clickbait titles? I'm very confused on what he's trying to accomplish.
I already figured out this week's title.
What would that be?
We call this the worst podcast we've ever heard.
And then that was it. There is no more podcast episodes after this.
Yeah, this is the finale. That's how we structure this.
Secretly the finale.
Oh man.
I didn't watch that video, but
I just finished it right before we started recording.
I feel so. Granted, I haven't watched it, but I did listen to their podcast, and it feels like that they're trying their best to talk positively about it, but they have a lot of conflicts and friction with the product, and which I get. To be fair, I think we should look at it through the lens of Vision Pro in a way, of it's a first-gen product, but by a company that it's their first product that they're making. And so It's a whole new monster that they have to tackle. Everything, the business, the sales, the marketing, the software updates, the hardware and all that. It's all new stuff, granted that they have a whole bunch of Apple employees helping them out that they've hired up for it, and you could tell by the design. But it's tough to, for me, I guess it's tough to be super critical on it, in which it's good to be critical, but to just say that the product is bad and we should just ignore it, I don't think is treating that fairly when they're introducing something very new and interesting, especially with miniaturized projector technology. Is very impressive to me. I think we could definitely utilize that and hopefully push it forward to something that maybe works a little bit better compared to what this first gen Humane AI thing is, even though it's $700 with a subscription, which is tough to swallow.
Yeah, you're a lot more fair to it than I am, I guess. I just cannot believe that it got past like the drawing board. I'm shocked that this got investment and it got manufactured and it got shipped at scale, because almost every problem I saw with it that's been brought up, and Marquez is by far not the only person to review it.
No.
Pretty much every review has been critical and negative on it. I don't think I've seen anyone genuinely recommend it. I've yet to see a single review that was like, yes, this is good, you should buy this. And I'm just like, of course this wasn't a good idea. Like, who thought this was... I don't know. This is one of those like moonshot projects in my head that like this shouldn't have left the idea board in my head, but someone must have really believed in it, but I don't understand why.
I guess, what's your main issue with it, Drew? Like, because it seems something that you've been tackling with is smartphone addiction and looking at the screen and always going on social media or looking just at whatever. Like, I think you described it pretty well during your series of trying to wean off smartphone usage, that you found yourself just passively unlocking your phone and opening an app without even thinking about it, and then realizing, why am I on this app? Am I just looking at it just to look at it? And then you'd close it and try to put your phone away, and then you'd still have that urge to grab it. I feel like the Humane AI Pin is trying to accomplish that, because it doesn't really have it both works for it and against it, a somewhat clunky user interface from what I can tell, in that it's not as smooth and quick with voice commands. Granted, a lot of other products aren't really smooth with that as well, but I think it's got room to grow, especially it relying on voice commands heavily, and with voice recognition and large language models, those developing right now.
Use all the hype words.
Yeah, whatever you want to use.
AI, neural net, language model.
Sure. I think those are
any one of those.
it being developed alongside with a lot of these systems as they're becoming popular and growing even more, and there's a lot of investment going into there. I think it's hitting at the right time. It's just a first gen product with a lot of issues, and it's also trying to carve out what it's good at and then focus on, or stray away, or I guess struggle with what it's bad at and try to figure out how to make that aspect a little bit better.
Yeah, I think in general, most people are not that into voice commands because humans naturally are not great at articulating. We're very, very much more comfortable with a touchscreen UI or just a point and click because it lets you be a lot more personal. People can't exactly hear everything you're doing or see everything you're doing. And a smartphone, as Marquez so eloquently put, is just so hard to beat. There's so many controls, there's so many options, and it's so easy to manage a calendar, manage email, do all of these things with a really tiny pocketable display. You can actually see the picture you're taking if you want to take a photo. The battery life lasts all day, which the Pin does not. It's small, it gets in the way. It's only compatible with certain kinds of clothing. If you're laying down or sitting in a certain way, it doesn't work. And the whole hold your hand out and project onto your hand, to me, is just a really bad screen. But it's the same concept. If I'm going to hold out my hand and I'm going to try to navigate a UI, why don't you just put a screen in that at that point? I feel like that's so much easier, so much cheaper, so much simpler, so much so much more scalability, and this AI stuff is just far too early to be reliable and consistent. And I think that, as many people have brought up, it straight up just gets information wrong a lot of the time, and I think they're jumping the gun would be an understatement. They're assuming that just AI in itself is good enough and powerful enough to power an entire product, when in reality, I'm not even sure we'll ever get to that point. But even if we did, it's way too early to assume we can get to that point or assume that you can do everything over a data connection. But go ahead, Randy.
He brought up a point in that video that I never even really thought about from, like, I guess a bigger point of view about the clunkiness of it, is because they want to try to build an ecosystem that breaks away from the phone, so purposely don't associate the phone, which is the obvious path.
That would help.
For using something like that. I wouldn't use the watch by itself. I never got the cellular plan, for example, so I can detach from the phone. And I remember you doing that, Drew, and you're like, nope, doesn't change anything. And
I had to go out of my way.
Right. Like, you have to force it, like, well, I guess I'll pay with my watch. And I still pay with my watch when I have my phone on me, right? But the whole idea of, like, purposely trying to cause friction to then... Here we go. It's causing a problem so it can fix that problem, but they caused its own problem. Like, the obvious path is to use the phone.
It's a solution looking for a problem, I think, is
even
another way to articulate
put it. I think I think all these little companion things, or what Mike was saying earlier about, like, combating smartphone addiction, I don't think they're like, fake or flukes or anything like that. I just think the concept is flawed, because I think about these niche phones that, like, do monochrome, for example, and it's old phone, and it's make you not want to be on the phone, and that's supposed to help you fight addiction with smartphone, this, then, and, like, that doesn't... I can name maybe 2 people in my life, in my immediate life, that have a jitterbug flip phone, and that's because they're old. That's it. Like, everyone else, even then, like, my wife's grandparents have iPhones and they FaceTime. Like, that's just the world we're in. And to act like, well, we're just going to carve a whole new world. I know it's short-sighted of me to be like, that's ridiculous, because people said that about Apple. $500? They said the exact same thing. But the difference was there really was a problem.
That's probably what Humane is thinking right now.
Yeah.
They all hated the iPhone.
They all hated the iPhone. But the thing is,
Just wait and see.
we're past that, though. We're past all of that. Everybody in a first world country, as we call them, has a smartphone, should have one. And if you don't have one, shoot, at least in America, the government will provide you with a free phone and phone number. They give you an Android phone. I know that. I somebody in my family had to go through this program. So it's because it's now at the point where it's a necessity. And if government's
It's a
acknowledging,
God-given right.
it's in our Constitution.
birthright.
It's an amendment in our Constitution.
Costs you $1,000.
Thou
Everyone
shall
deserves
not
a
green
smartphone.
bubble. Somehow it's a commandment now because I said thou. But
There were 15 commandments. Moses dropped one of them.
so, and even if you look at the slate, the commandments having a little ellipses at the bottom that's typing out the next one because it's on iMessage. Okay, but look, the point is, smartphones are just as vital and necessity today as it was having. It's basically a utility. It has to be treated kind of like a utility. It's like any other kind of commodity that you need in the house. I'm trying to think like a landline, a mailing address, like any way of communicating with you. It is that important. And it all comes with one of these manufacturers that make phones. The PIN, especially at $700, especially with the limitations, it doesn't fix anything. It's a status symbol. It's even right here so people can see it and they'll know it. Like they're trying to make themselves be premium and bragging. I get it.
How
Gen
else
1.
do you
It's the
interact
same-
with the device, Randy?
Huh?
How else do you interact with the device then if you don't have the device near either your mouth or your hands?
I would rather use my AirPods and let them be AI-fied. I would rather, if it's going to be passive like that and there's no screen, do something like this or the watch. And all those things I already have resistance on. I don't know, Neuralink. Put something in my brain. That's the most passive way of
surgically implanted.
Yeah.
You know what I think has kickstarted a lot of these companies and ideas, besides the whole AI thing, which we've talked about to death, and I know how everyone feels about it, but I think that the smartphone is just one of those innovations, one of those technologies that people don't quite realize, I think, how impactful or how groundbreaking it is. Like, it replaced so many fields all at once, the pocketable computer, that everyone is now obsessed with this concept of, okay, what can replace this piece of tech? What's going to replace the next big thing? And it's kickstarted this obsession now, and you could argue maybe even at Apple with the whole Vision Pro thing, it's kickstarted this obsession with what is going to replace the smartphone. And you could even argue maybe that's what kickstarted Neuralink as well, as you bring that up. It's like everyone's obsessed with how do we leapfrog smartphones? And it just might not happen. It just might not be one of those things that gets replaced, at least in our lifetimes. Like, it might be just too good, too capable, too practical. No one wants to be the guy who says no one will ever need more than 500 kilobytes because that ages poorly, and everyone laughs at that guy. But I think it was Bill Gates, by the way.
It was.
They laugh at him for different reasons. But no one wants to be the guy that at the turn to the 20th century says, I think mankind has peaked with technology. There's not anything else we could possibly invent. No one wants to say that.
Good callbacks.
You are really old if you remember that.
Good callbacks, Drew. I was there. I was at the town square.
And then the Wright brothers were like,
they offered me if I wanted to help them, push it off the thing in North Carolina. And I was like, no thanks, guys. I gotta.
Oh, yeah. You own property out there or something. Way
Anyway,
back then.
I get what you're saying though, and you're right. And nobody wants you don't want to be the one that goes that's mocked for the Don't let that be your legacy. Of
Yeah.
that's it, you'll be forever remember that. I can't think of Steve Ballmer in any other way but $500. I can't. Oh, developers. No!
Right.
So-
No one wants to be Microsoft, basically, is what we're saying.
Yeah. I don't even think Microsoft wants to be Microsoft sometimes.
It's a pretty tough situation they're in. Their gaming sales are not the best with their console and all that. And then their Surface line is kind of stalled out. And
Is that true? I haven't followed them.
oh yeah, they've been losing the gaming war for years. And then
But I thought they bought Activision. Shouldn't that help?
you'd hope so. At least they're
I
setting
thought
up
that didn't go
their
through.
That went through. They were able to
Oh,
buy
okay.
Activision Blizzard King.
Okay.
Activision Blizzard. Yeah, three names in there.
At least their stock is doing great.
Yeah, well, I guess they're trying their best. Yeah, I don't know.
Much better than any EV stock.
As long as
sure.
Microsoft holds government contracts, I mean they'll be okay because those contracts are pretty much good. And as someone who was adjacent as a representative of those type of those terms that we did when I was working for the government, the what's the saying? Hang on, Drew, you've been spitting out good sayings. Let me see if I remember this one. Otherwise, correct me.
Okay.
They got comfortable and complacent. That's not the same, but that's just what I'm trying to say. Microsoft is resting on their laurels. They're like, listen, we got the thing. Because they're killing it at enterprise. Like anything that's PC based in enterprise, like Windows is still majority
the way to go.
market share. That's just
It's
the
not
way
even
it is.
close.
Not even close. But when
It's
these
Mac OS
enterprises
and everything else.
when enterprises start shifting over to smartphones and they use their businesses through smartphones, then it becomes Apple, which is funny that it's that tilt. But then Microsoft has those software contracts, not just using their platforms, but then using Microsoft Office, Microsoft One or OneDrive, Microsoft the suite of applications.
Microsoft 365.
Thank you, Microsoft 365, and they will what they lack in the gaming department or in the hardware department or really anywhere else. They really kind of like double down because besides buying out Activision, they're a majority stake owner. If not, they're the biggest financer of open AI, right? Like those guys basically are.
Oh, yeah.
I think they're 51%, but in the contract was that
Yeah, it's one of those really close numbers or something.
but they can't even if they're majority, they don't have same power over the whole board thing, especially after this whole like ousting the CEO and bringing him back and all that happened in a matter of hours. They don't have control. Like they have majority stake in it, but they don't have controlling stake, so to say. Like none of their guys are on the board or anything like that. They
Voting rights.
Yeah, it's one of those things. So Microsoft is trying to do something in their own way with that stuff, but I was like, why am I even talking about that? Because I think that's why their stock is still as healthy as it is. It's not a stock that's in danger of going away, but that doesn't mean they're advancing, so to say, in the tech space. They're just
Personal, individual tech.
Yeah. Every kid wants an iPhone, right? That's the whole thing. And then you got a customer for life. And anybody's on an iPhone really now doesn't necessarily really need a computer. We do because we do this, but like most people, they don't need it. And if they do need a computer, it's like whatever the work provides them. And that's probably
Pretty
where
much.
Microsoft comes in. And Microsoft's like, oh yeah,
That's
we got
true.
that covered for enterprise. So they don't really need it in that sense. So iPhone is just that. To double down what you're saying, Drew, it's that embedded. It's just not gonna go anywhere. It has longevity. It has sustainability. It has great resale value. It has great software support. It has everything that you need, and platforms are built on it. And if all these countries have their way about breaking Apple down, it'll be an open platform enough that so many other people are going to use it outside of America, because then they can sideload apps and this. That. It's just that much of a. No AI pin is going to fix any of that. Just won't.
Yeah, I do think acknowledging that smartphones are addictive is one thing, but saying that we're gonna fight smartphone addiction with a $700 tech product
What's the
is
subscription?
like, and a subscription. Yeah, that's not going to win people over. I'm trying to think of a good analogy for it. Usually, it helps with food for me. So I was like, okay, people are addicted to sugar, but that doesn't mean you can start, a company that does healthy, I don't know, vitamin rich juice, and you're gonna go up against Coca-Cola and Pepsi. Like we're gonna outsell Coca-Cola. We're gonna take away from the Coca-Cola market, because did you know Coke is bad for you, but this drink is actually much better for you. It's like, yeah, no, that's the addictive substance is going to sell and do much better than the non-addictive substance.
You're talking about Poppy. They took out an ad in Super Bowl and everything, and I see them everywhere now. Poppy is this prebiotic, like, alternative soda that's good for you because it has bacteria for your gut that it helps you, and it's like, I don't know, I think like 25 calories a can or something like that. So like, none of these like artificial sugars and stuff like that, but they know those guys.
It's a prime example because I've never heard of them.
They know they're not going to dethrone the king or kings. The only way you could do that is if you had to go straight to the people and be like, do you want to make sugar water for the rest of your life, or do you want to come with me and change the world? That's the only way you warp a mind.
That was good.
Right. I think the only comparison that I know of is
Thank you.
Have you guys heard of Bang? The soda or energy drink Bang?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I drink
Too easy.
I drink Bang with a spoon and a lighter.
Too easy. I thought you said Bane. I was like, of course. I thought you were saying Bane.
No, Bang as
That's
in
like
boom,
that
bang.
makes Coca-Cola look healthy.
No, so actually, the funny thing about Bang is I had my wife who got a degree in nutrition look at it because I liked this stuff. I liked drinking it, and I was trying to wean myself off of Red Bull, and oh goodness, I think to wean myself off Monster, I drank Red Bull, and then after Red Bull, Bang. And then after that,
Great idea.
Right. She looked into it. She found that Bang isn't owned by any of the big soda enterprises. And then also she looked at the ingredients, and they weren't like, I don't know, several tons of sugar shoved into a can. It was actually quite not. It was refreshing how maybe not organic, but how refined of a product it was without just delving into sugar by the pounds. Which I'll have to grab a can and compare it to Red Bull or anything else. But it was astounding.
Yeah.
She was saying,
We got a new sponsor here.
yeah, of course, definitely. Please sponsor us, Bank. But I guess the point that I'm trying to make is just like what you're saying, Randy. They're not trying to, or they can't beat Coca-Cola or Pepsi. There's too many people buying that. They're already too big of a company, and people just adore that product. So to try to unseat that throne with some not well-known product and trying to put it in front of as many eyes as possible is just not even the start. It is like the pinky toe over the start line of this several million-mile marathon that you're going to have to run just to get close to what other companies have been doing for decades. So it's tough, but I think that doesn't mean that we should stay content with what we have. I think it's good that other companies come in and show off what they can do, and us as the customers can tell them what they're doing wrong and what we don't like about it, and then they can learn from that and try something else that's either new or iterate on what they've got to make it a lot more appealing. So that's why maybe I'm a little bit more optimistic about Humane AI or the upcoming Rabbit R1, where it's something that is different, something that isn't going to be as addictive of me looking at my phone all over the weekend and then looking at it as soon as I wake up and as soon, like right before I fall asleep. It'd be nice to have that disconnect from a screen, in which, as far as you've displayed, Drew, and that I've tried privately, it's tough to quit this technology because it's almost a utility at this point. It's pretty much utility. So it's tough to just wean it off and say, yeah, I don't need it, but I can still communicate with friends somehow. It's tough, especially in your business covering tech, and then me and Randy trying to stay in contact with you do it too, Drew, but trying to stay in contact with family and friends and all that. It's so easy just to grab the phone and do that, and then you slip into all the other apps. So I applaud companies like Humane AI or Rabbit in trying something different and utilizing tech that is cutting edge and just, it's very rough around the edges, but it's something that we should definitely be trying because we're at somewhat of a stale point in phones where we're just paying attention to what the megapixel is on the camera this year, or does it have X feature or Y feature, and there's, I don't know, is there new ground that I'm just missing on smartphones that we should be looking for, that I should be a lot more excited about? Or
no.
Okay.
Definitely not. But I do think it's legit. It's a real problem, the smartphone addiction. I just personally don't believe with this particular addiction, you can fight it with more technology. I think it's a human problem, and I don't think another product is going to fix it. Like, phones are here. They're here to stay. They're going to be here. And I don't think it's very practical these days for anybody to try to get by just without having one. And especially if you just try to get by with a AI pin or a R1 to do everything for you, you're not going to get very far. A lot of things aren't going to work. A lot of account management stuff, banking stuff. It's just going to be too inefficient. And there's... is it possible to learn this power? And I'm just like, not from a chatbot. That's the point I'm at. Is like, the AI is not going to get us off of our phones because we're learning about all these AI features and smartphone replacements from off of our phones.
Drew, I figured it out. Here's your food analogy.
Oh, okay.
I know how, because we're all saying the same thing in different ways. So let me see if I can bridge it a little bit. Smartphone addiction is like any one of us, in general, people going out and just getting fast food instead of like eating at home or having something a little bit more healthier. And I make this comparison because I am more inclined, incentivized to not do that, to not go out when I have to socialize, be engaged with my family. I like hosting personally. I like having people over, and I like cooking and all that. It's like all that within itself helps combat a fast food addiction, because what I remember covering this years ago, I did a 30-day like challenge on myself, and I documented that I found the root of my addiction with fast food. It was not necessarily the food itself, because the food is crap, but it was the convenience of it. Just get there, come back, and then I only got 24 hours like everybody. It was the convenience factor of it all. Like a smartphone, how convenient it is just to open up the phone and, just open up Twitter or Instagram or Facebook or whatever. YouTube. Like mine is YouTube.
What's the worst thing in the world going on right now? Let me see.
Yeah. Oh, I love going to
open up X.
I love going to the trending and see what. That's how I found out about Marquez trending. That's how I find out all these things I start tweeting about, is because I go to trending. I'm like, whoa, D-Brand, like all that. I was like, holy crap, this place is toxic.
World War
But I
III.
can't stop.
Oh yeah, There's another war going on. What
Yeah,
else is
World War III. Oh, yum! I love that for my health, for my for my mental health. I gotta know, is my wife gonna get activated? Am I gonna get recalled? Is like, oh, that's always fun to think about. So
I'm glad we talked about Dbrand last week because I felt like that was the clean week where you could hate on Dbrand and they probably wouldn't come after you.
yeah,
And then if we tried to do that like 6 months from now, we'd get canceled.
we would get canceled. So how all that to now say, how do we combat any type of those like addictions that instead of like an AI pin trying to fix? Before I even say that, I agree with you at one point, Mike. I commend the effort. I respect the push, and it will cause a ripple effect and there will be improvements on future iterations, much like Dolly or ChatGPT or whatever. Like, improvements are inevitable, and so I commend the effort of them even trying. Somebody's got to make the first move, and even if we think it's like, that's like the BlackBerry in the timeline of things, we're gonna forget about you. Just the fact, like,
Jeez.
it was there, and AI pin.
BlackBerry was popular at one point.
Yeah, I would
That's
say
the
like
difference.
Droid or something like that.
Okay, I mean,
I would say it's the Essential phone all over again, is what it feels like. Essential was almost banking on the
Oh my
same
God.
mentality.
I had to think about that. I forgot that phone.
Exactly.
Essential.
And
Why?
that'll be Humane in 10
Why
years.
does
I
that sound
expect a
familiar?
huge price cut. They're going to
Core
cut
memory
the price in
unlocked.
half and probably drop the membership or substantially reduce the membership. They might get one slight hardware update and then the company will go under. That's my prediction.
You know. Also, Fisker.
That's what I think.
I was gonna say
Fisker.
that sounds very
It's
familiar.
It's Fisker. And
Well,
what do they all
Fisker-
have in common? Marquez.
Marquez.
Yeah.
Oh,
Here's how
my
you combat
God.
smartphone
I actually,
addiction.
I've
Oh, go ahead.
okay, go ahead.
All right. Here's my closing thought on this. We have a delay, ladies and gentlemen. It is what it is.
The delay is so annoying.
It is.
We got to do an in-person podcast.
Nah.
How about we do it this year? Let's put it on the books, gents.
Can we do that?
Can we just
That's
say
illegal.
that? I think we can just say that. Let's do that. Let's. All right. You breaking news on our own podcast for podcast news.
Do it live.
We're doing it live. This Discord freaking sucks. We're doing it live. You write it and I'll read it. We're doing it live. All right. Here's my last thought. Then say what you guys say, Drew. To combat smartphone addiction, for me, the more people I'm surrounded with in person, the less interested I am. And I think you guys personally, as my friends, I think you understand this as well. I see you, Drew, for example, whether you vlog it or don't, put it up on Instagram or whatever, don't, or what, like you going out and whether you're going to go do your little trails or your hikes or play sports, whatever, like when you are with either your wife, your friends, your family, or all of the above, like you're in the zone. And when we're all three of us, speaking of being, in person, when we're all together, we talk about this stuff. We do what we do right here, but in person. But I'm not. You don't see me doom scrolling when I'm with you guys, and it's not because a part of it's like I don't get this much time with you guys, so I'm gonna take it for what it is. But it's also like that human element that no camera or Vision Pro or phone or anything is gonna
humane.
fix, or humane. You need that.
I was gonna make that joke, but it was way too low of a bar to reach. I'm
And
glad
yet
you
Drew
reached
went for it. He went for it.
Mike was like, "Nah, I wouldn't say that."
I thought about it. I'm like,
Drew
no,
says it.
that's so dumb to say. And then he said it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry. I totally agree with what you're saying, though, Randy. That's an excellent point.
I feel when I go outside here now
Touch grass.
and yeah, I go touch grass.
I was gonna say that.
I go touch
Sorry.
dirt. I go touch mountains. I go touch. I just being in the moment. I'll do a little snap or a little whatever. Put it on my story. Like ta-da, a thing. Maybe a little family
You
photo.
still use Snapchat?
I didn't mean to say snap. No, I don't. I meant to say Instagram.
Oh.
I meant to say
You
Instagram.
scared me for a
No,
second.
no. I don't
Snapchat's
use it.
still
I don't use it.
alive.
Oh,
I just use Twitter and I just use Instagram for my methods of communication and sharing. And then I have a iCloud album photo family for friends and family that I share things
I've
about.
been trying to get on that album for years, but
We sent you an invite.
it's not. When? I would have hit yes.
Hang on. All right. Side note. I'll address that. We sent you and Luis an invite a long time ago. I sent Mike and I sent all four.
I don't remember this.
You two fine gentlemen.
Nope.
And your better halves all were. Yes, there was a conversation.
I don't remember this at all. I haven't seen this once.
No recollection.
We talked about this last year, Mike, in my house.
I did not receive an invite to that album.
Early Rosie O'Donnell again. Man, he's screwed too, isn't he? I'm saying this dude's standing trial and holy crap. Anyway, being with people makes me not want to be on my phone because there's a real
Have
life.
in-person friends, guys. That's
Go outside.
The solution.
The solution is go outside, and if you can't go outside because your weather sucks or you just live in a crappy place,
Or
go
the
talk to your
UK.
family. Or go just the moment you step away from the screens, that's when I feel my healthiest. And they don't go away because I still need to check my finances. I still need to make my phone calls. I still need to do all the, respond to, emails or whatever. All that still coexists. But I am my healthiest when I am surrounded by people. So that's how we fix it. I'm done. All right, go.
The analogy I thought of that I think is better than the food analogy for the issue with the AI pin or any AI hardware product really versus the smartphone. It's more of a financial example with like budgeting, but it's like those ads you've probably seen or gotten about a service that you pay for to help you manage your memberships. It's that. It's another subscription to help you manage your subscriptions.
It's so silly.
I've gotten ads for those where they're like, you should sign up for this service. It'll help you save on average $40 a month on your memberships by helping you keep track of them. I'm like, how's it going to do that? You have to manually plug in every membership, and then it just tells you, hey, stop doing that. But I'll also take your money in the process. It's like that's the AI pin. Smartphones are bad. Here's something that will take more of your time and more of your money.
Yeah.
Well, at least with like the Rabbit
just
R1,
a lot less efficiently.
there's no subscription, so
That's better.
and it's less costly, and
Much less.
The best
my
membership is
opinion.
no membership.
it looks a lot more fun and interesting to me with their. I don't even know what their design style is, but it's very retro. Toy.
There's a term for it. There's a designer. I forget what they're called. They did a game.
Yeah, they did the play date. We talked
Portable
about this
game thing.
a while back. But yeah, something. I mean, that I'm more interested in, and looking forward to
Play
seeing.
date. That's what it's called.
Yes, the play date. I'm looking forward to seeing what that holds and how that competes with the Humane AI Pin, and whether that basically unseats it and makes it a little bit more appealing as a product, or a niche. A niche, maybe not accessory, but not even utility. I guess it would be pretty much a tech toy, but something of that nature where you get some utility out of it, but it's pretty much you being able to play around with a different way to get information is interesting to me. And it's not trying to take itself too seriously. It's very much more made out of the joy and fun, but also has a little bit more. It's a lot more palatable in terms of cost, and probably usage. So maybe that's why I'm a little defensive on it. Is that I think that there's potential in this realm of not really an interface that you can directly see or pull out and look at all the time. It's mainly something that's passive but can still do many things that you need throughout the day, which I like the idea of.
It's like a AI pod instead of just iPod. You know, it's like what?
No.
No,
No.
What?
No.
Get out.
No.
Get out.
No.
I'm just saying it's
No.
like a single-use device. It's trying not to be a phone, but it's another thing you charge and have to carry around with you. I don't know. I think it'll flop, but it'll be a lot less expensive of a flop. And it kind of reminds me of a Happy Meal toy, which both in design
wrong
and
with
also
that?
like, hey, this is really fun for a few hours, and then you kind of forget about it and let your nephew play with it or something. You know, I don't know. You just kind of toss it around like, oh yeah, what did that thing do? But from a business standpoint, I think Rabbit is far more on the right track because everything the R1 does basically could be done by an app, but they realize people aren't going to spend very much money on an app, so it makes far more sense to sell, you know, something that costs you $60 to make for $200, and you'll bring in a lot more revenue. You don't have to worry about the App Store and Apple cracking down on you like that. But I don't know, maybe Apple will be forced to open all this App Store stuff up, and then they can just put an app on the iPhone and call it a day. Side loaded.
No.
Yeah.
That Speaking of things that you forget about after having fun with them, I haven't missed Vision Pro. And I know I'll miss it when there is new software for Vision OS. And then I don't know if this is an iPhone addiction thing or just like practicality of it, because I feel like sometimes I'm more on my computer than my phone, depending on the task. Vision Pro is like iPad in the sense that it's like its own little thing. It doesn't connect to your phone, it doesn't connect to your Apple Watch. It just exists. And you can make the same case for MacBook, but MacBook actually has like utility purpose. MacBook does what we're doing now and all these software that we do, and it's kind of like more cross-platform too when doing certain tasks that involve collaborating with something on Windows. iPad is in its own little world, and Vision Pro is in its own little world. Apple Watch is in its own little world, and I don't miss it. And maybe it's the whole loneliness factor. Like, you know, I'd rather be with people, and we've talked about that. We've already dived enough into that, but besides, oh, cool new software for this thing, I want to see what that looks like, and I'll probably go do a demo. I just want to try out this. No, thank you, sir. I don't need a. I did the butterfly. Yeah, I just need to see the new thing. Thanks. Yeah, no, I got it. I know more than you.
It's a Rajasaurus.
I just don't. Maybe it's a price thing. Maybe that's it. Maybe I can't stomach $3,500. I can't stomach $700 on a freaking pin. Wait,
With a subscription.
$700 plus subscription. So let's just, you know, whatever. Above $700 for a pin. Ooh, $700 for an iPhone. No.
Not a bad deal these days, especially if it's a Pro model. Get all the Pro features.
Or just get an iPhone 15 and you basically get the same thing and USB-C.
Nah.
Yeah, Mike.
Yeah.
Pro all the way, man. It's all about
This is
the
a
Pro.
My phone's lighter. It has a longer battery. It has the exact same megapixel. I take higher fidelity photos that aren't raw. I got a Pro. My phone is a Pro, Mike.
Yeah, you have my phone, just in a different skin and a different port.
In a better built material, lighter, cheaper.
You have my phone. How did Randy do that? I have been getting a fairly similar question over the past couple weeks, and I realized I don't think I've asked you guys this question. So I feel like I have to bring it up on one of these episodes. It might as well be this one.
Yes, I bought 5 of them.
If
Oh,
There you go. If the government's pushing Apple, not just Europe, but also now with Department of Justice suing Apple and all of this talk about anti-competitive and monopoly, let's say all these governments go to trial or attack or go after Apple, they all win. If all these countries and all these governments have their way, which it feels like it's kind of going in that direction a lot of the time, as Type C is an example.
Mm-hmm.
What
Nice.
what does you think that means for Apple? Like, do they do better? Do they do worse? Do they do the same in regards to new products, iterative design, or sales? Anything, just however you interpret it. Do you think it's ultimately gonna help them, hurt them, not matter? Like, will there still be reasons to keep buying into Apple's ecosystem if all these governments have their way with opening things up and forcing Apple to be more like everybody else, I guess?
I believe Randy and I covered this on the week that you were gone, I think 2 weeks ago, Drew. And I think my answer still stays the same with there should be some balance. How far is too far until it pretty much is just the government telling Apple, here's what you build it. And then Apple has to comply unless they don't want to, and then the government says, well, then you can't sell it here. It seems slightly dystopian because then you don't really have a free market. You have a very governmentally controlled market. And I choose not to believe that as our future because that seems very bleak and depressing. I think there's some middle ground that hopefully gets reached, and I don't know what that looks like. But I'm hoping it's something that provides a little bit more fairness in the market of tech or just products in general. Where, yeah, Apple has their special ecosystem, but instead of busting down the wall, building some tunnel between whatever walled garden that they have and what else everyone uses. Or maybe not everyone, but a lot of other people use, being Android and anything else, whatever sprouts up. So I think there's some tunnel that we can build together. But right now it definitely feels like the EU and the US government and whoever else is coming at Apple with their sledgehammers. And unfortunately, Apple does not have a Cybertruck to combat these sledgehammers. So it seems like these bricks are kind of just falling down and there's nothing they can really do, which is, it's tough. It's tough to say whether it makes sense for Apple to yield or it makes more sense for Apple to push back and just draw a line somewhere and see where that gets us.
I remember agreeing with you about the middle ground part at the end of all that discussion, Mike, but I don't remember what my stance was, to be honest. But in the framing
I listened for the record.
Well, but you framed it a little bit differently, though, Drew, from what I remember how we were discussing it. And your question is, well, there was a multi-question, but I get the overall premise is that, like, does this hurt them? Does it help them? Does it not matter? Are we incentivized to leave the metaphorical ecosystem, walled garden, to, cross-contaminate and basically have a mutt have a mud blood of different hardwares coexisting?
Chill, JK.
Mud blood.
Mud blood. But things are different now, Harry. I can touch you. Kill this man.
This is gonna be Android users texting Randy when RCS support comes out. I can touch. And Randy's like,
Cedric! But things are different.
Yeah.
I can touch. Okay, so that's
I
great.
remember your stance was much more software based. Like, it seems like federal government and governments overseas were all of the belief that you can have hardware advantages, but no one is buying software advantages.
That's right.
And I'm more specifically asking, like, we're not debating what's going to happen. I'm saying in the situation where all the governments win and they all get what they want, does that result in, I mean, mainly what results to Apple, but also, like, what does that mean for us?
So,
is it good for us? Is it bad for us as tech commentators if all of this hardware has the exact same services? And
the government will be like, Harry Potter. You know what I'm doing. Yeah. There's a video of 10 hours of him just laughing out there. So, okay.
The brand who lived.
Anyway, so I could go. I was about to make more, but I want to answer the question instead of making more Harry Potter references.
No, I prefer it when you make memes anyway.
Okay. See, remember when we used to like clip things out? I think Nick did that, and you're like, boom, there, just all these.
Remember Nick?
Remember Nick? I wonder what he's up to.
Who?
Anyway, who? I don't. I'm trying to be fair because the biased part of me is like, no, Apple should keep what they made. But if I'm being realistic, if they were to win and beat Apple, so to say, I think I think everything's too embedded, to be honest with you. I think these tree roots are just, they run too deep. I don't know.
Do you mean like brand loyalty? Is that what you mean?
No, like functionality. I think like, what's the worst case scenario in the sense of things, or not even worst case, what's the most drastic thing that changes if all these guys get what they want and Spotify gets to sell their things in app and they get their cut?
No.
We can sideload games, maybe, with the ray tracing and all that. So maybe you could just load, console level games.
I could
on
paint
your
a
phone.
pretty horrible picture for you if you'd like.
Please, yeah, because before you do, my thought is that how you as the individual, Drew, Mike, listeners, me, you already do what you do on your phone. That doesn't necessarily change your day-to-day. What are you going to do? Open up social media? You take a photo? How you edit the photo? How you maybe transfer the photo? If that. It's not... There are these, outliers that things will become a little bit more intricate or complicated, convoluted, and diluted even. Maybe, sure, but realistically, your day-to-days, your phone's still going to charge. You're still going to text, FaceTime. If anything, maybe it makes it better with the FaceTiming other people. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know a worse scenario. So let me hear it, Drew.
Well, the one I keep envisioning that would, I think, worsen the smartphone experience pretty drastically is that every major developer wants to have their own app store. They want to have their own market because then they get to play by their rules. They get to collect all the revenue and they don't have to share any of it with Apple, which means Meta makes their own store. So now WhatsApp, Instagram, Messenger, they all have to be managed through the Meta App Store. And then Google has Gmail, Google Photos, YouTube, and the Google Assistant app and all that has to go through the Play Store that's now on iOS.
Yeah.
And then you manage the iOS App Store through, of course, Apple's App Store. And then any game you happen to stumble upon, or, you want to use GoDaddy, well, the GoDaddy has their own App Store. This is basically what happened on Windows with a lot of game companies because people didn't want to go through the Windows Store. So now you have like 15 different launchers. Some are willing to pick a team and play for their team. So you got the Steam library, but then you got Epic Games, and then you got Origin, and then everybody wants to make their own team so they can play by their rules and bypass whoever the bigger team's fees are. And when you start allowing apps that aren't downloaded through a singular app store, then you have to do it through a browser. There's no other way to access those things. So that means tapping a link on a browser is, in the future, potentially all it's going to take to be able to download an app. And I think that could easily push up the malware, the scams out there. If all it takes is you to tap one bad ad on a web page, I could think of, you know, older people or just less tech savvy people that ended up tapping on certain links that think they mean certain things or misunderstand them, and then that downloads an app that has not been approved by Apple, so Apple doesn't know what it does, and it could do things in the background, or it could hide itself, and you're not able to easily delete it. So all the malware lets itself in. I think Apple's usually pretty good at catching that kind of thing, but I think it would be a lot worse or a lot easier for the malware or the scams to find their way onto the iPhone if they're forced to open everything up. You know, just making the Apple Watch compatible with Android or the Pixel Watch compatible with iOS, I don't see that causing a bunch of pain or struggle. It's a little bit more software money that Apple has to spend, and maybe that slows down the development of new operating systems, but nothing that massive. You know, we all agree that, especially with watchOS, it's like, okay, you're kind of running out of things to do here anyway. But
how would this be any different than Mac or PC? I download Spotify through a website, and I've never had an issue with malware. Even when I was on Windows in the late 2000s, I didn't. I mean, I was torrenting though, so I was also doing some. I mean, what?
Yeah,
but
I would say the phone does a lot more than the computer does, especially in your day-to-day life in regards to the cameras, the wallet app, the boarding passes, that type of thing. So the phone's a bit more versatile than the computer, and a computer definitely relies very heavily on a browser to do a ton of stuff. Mm-hmm. So there's less total like downloaded installed apps. But yeah, the whole concept of like virus protection was invented because of having an open platform like Windows. That was where whole, you know, virus culture came around, was that developers could just do whatever they want on your OS without you knowing about it because it wasn't very well regulated. And that's worst case scenario. Again, I don't think that's the scenario that's likely. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I think that if it's out of Apple's control, it could very easily go against what has made Apple so successful, which is kind of having more of a singular vision of how a phone or how a device is supposed to work, with the same teams and the same people designing the hardware and the software coming together. And when you have more disconnections of companies trying to make ports or trying to make software or hardware compatible with one another, but they're not directly working together. Now you're working with companies. It's the whole smart home game. How many different companies do you have to scroll through in HomeKit when you're trying to set up the different accessories? And how many more bugs do you find when you've got this company that you're now trying to get to communicate with this company, and you're trying to do these more complicated handshakes, and there's just a little bit more distortion at every connection.
Sure.
The more open it gets.
It reminds me of how Legacy Audio deals with software typically.
Yes.
In their vehicles.
Definitely.
And it's just that disconnect of the vehicle's great, the knobs are great, the buttons are great. You get to the screen where you're having to tap on the radio button or the map button, and it takes 5 seconds for the map to load up. And you're just...
Because one company's in charge of the screen, and one company's in charge of the digitizer,
right.
And one company's in charge of the CPU, and a different company's in charge. So you get this really big mess of distortion. And in the same regard, all these apps that aren't necessarily approved or regulated by Apple, now you update your OS. I'm ready for iOS 25, and half of them could break now. And you have all these problems. I feel like those kinds of issues are more likely to happen on my Mac, and I kind of expect it because I'm like, this is a computer, so not all of them are up to date. Not all of them are. I'm going to do that, what you did to us. I'm just going to leave, and you're going to have to keep my footage in for the rest of the episode. For the rest of the
I saw the comment on that. I was like, wow, he's really not coming back. They're just going to keep that feed up? All right.
I was tempted because you did come back. You did come back on camera and, take your headphones off and stop recording. And I was like, I should put that in, the middle. and then I like reversed it and had you get back up afterwards. And I was like, he should come back in like every 10 minutes. And I was like, this is gonna be so distracting.
That's funny. No, I have an entrance in mind for when we do Eevee next time. But
go watch Eevee if you're wondering what we're talking about.
Speaking of comments, though, I saw a little retraction of sorts. Like, never mind, our fellow feedbacker of saying, make the intro shorter. It's like, no, make it even longer. If that's reverse psychology, I already told you. Every episode, it's going to get longer and longer and longer until it fills up a whole episode. So
there you go.
There you go.
You know, have like an 8-hour podcast.
You had somebody.
It's just the intro.
We could probably
I
do
don't
that in
know.
person.
One of you two said something. I don't remember now, but it prompted somebody to reach out to me. 2 different people reached out to me, one through Twitter and one through Discord, saying, I like the intro. I just need to get used to it. I'm used to the other one. I don't think... I was like, it's okay, guys. We just having fun here. It's fine. Nobody's taking any of this seriously. Not even the review guy that we get on Twitter. Whatever. We're have fun with it. It's okay. But I saw a little bit of a retraction. That's all I wanted to address. I see you. I see the comments. I see the whatever. But more importantly, we're getting a Mike only episode. There's more comments, Mike. They want it. Give the people
I'm
what they
technically
want.
giving it to them right now. If you're a video watcher, if you're listening,
Yeah, they're going to have 45
Spotify
minutes of you doing this.
So I guess for clarity, for those who aren't watching on YouTube, I'm sitting in my truck. I'm currently traveling right now using Starlink to do a bunch of this podcast for us, which is great. I think it's doing a fantastic job so far.
Starlink's been fantastic lately, by the way. It's incredible how stable this has been.
That's interesting. Sometimes you're disconnecting, but it's not all the time. It used to be at the very beginning. It was like this 24/7 of like some disconnects, but all the time. Now it's disconnects every I think 10 minutes. So sometimes I miss a little bit of the conversation.
You
but
could
I can
actively watch the satellite moving.
Yeah, pretty
you
much.
Could see the quality.
The only issue,
it's switching.
Yeah, the only issue right now that maybe if Drew hasn't addressed or I haven't addressed it via audio is there's a whole bunch of trucks driving by. But you are pretty much getting Mike in the dark right now, if that's what you wanted. If you really want it, we'll give it to you later. And I don't know what you'd want from that. If I'm just sitting here
Mike
drinking a soda or just sitting here staring at you for 5 hours.
Soda's bad for you, Mike. You should have
well, good thing I'm not drinking soda. But drinking gluten-free.
Brought to you by Bang.
Something. Anyways, where are we going with this? Starlink's great.
I don't know.
Go buy a dish. Go buy your mother a dish.
Buy your mom a Starlink.
Buy your mom a Starlink. And then use that back in the transcripts a couple years later.
By the way, they make it so
I like how
easy.
they use that.
I was going to say, they make it so easy to jump on the subscription or jump off the subscription. Like,
That's good.
It's insane to me how easy it is just to, I just want to activate it right now.
It's changed so much. I remember the beta program where it was like, would you like to be offered the potential of an invite to maybe pre-order a Starlink dish, and it's going to suck, and it's going to be the worst internet connection you have. And then today, I'm scrolling on Twitter, because that's what it's called, and I get an ad that says, now offering Starlink returned dishes for like $2.99 or something. So you can get them, you can get the equipment at a discounted rate for people who sent them back. And I think I read somewhere that like they wanted to launch it in Nigeria, but Nigeria had this limit on like American-based companies that you can't charge more than $20 for anything. So they just made Starlink $20 a month there. And I was like, that's kind of
Boys,
amazing.
we're moving to Nigeria.
Well, I'm waiting for that prince to get back to me about my money, and then I will.
There we go. Wait a second.
Yeah, I
hold
know.
on.
I knew you knew some people there.
Yeah.
Invested.
Oh yeah. Any day now. That. Why do you think I need to check my emails any day now? Do you
I
think
gave him all this
Okay,
money
check.
back in like 1998. It has to be coming
2012.
soon. Oh, okay.
I just need let's ask Sora to do a video of Randy checking the Humane AI Pin. When am I gonna get my investment back on my Nigerian?
Okay, what I wanted to ask you guys was, do you think
Yes.
Apple will drag this out, this lawsuit? Which one? All of them. They can delay and delay and delay. Do you think Tim Cook
The
is
world
just,
versus Apple.
yeah? Do you think Tim Cook is just gonna pass that to the next person? He's like, I'm gonna see this and write it out. He's gonna head out, and he's like, that's the next guy's problem. I think he's going to do that. I don't think he cares or has the bandwidth to deal with all this nonsense. He's like, it's just a bunch of noise, and it's just not going to deal with it. And whoever the next person be, Jeff, is going to have to deal with it. Do you guys think that? Do you think he's just delaying it out, dragging it out until, the next guy? He's got the senioritis.
No matter who's CEO, they will probably postpone / delay lawsuits or government mandates as long as possible because they have something to gain by keeping as much control as possible. So they'll do the malicious compliance thing like they did in the EU, where it's like, okay, you can sideload, but it only costs you $500,000 a year. It's like, oh, well, that's not what we meant, Apple. I think they'll drag their feet as much as they can with all the lawsuits, no matter who's in charge. But yeah, Tim Cook is nearing retirement age. I'm sure he wants to step down like Drew Baglino and spend more time with his kids.
AKA he got fired.
Who
Well, he's
knows?
the head boss. I don't know if he can get fired. Tim Cook shouldn't be fired, if anything, but I think he's at the age where at any time, really, it would be appropriate for him to just be like, I've hustled for a long time. I think I'm ready to.
He's
Become
middle
a
of
fellow.
nowhere desert, Forrest Gump with the beard. I'm getting kind of tired now. I think I'm gonna go home.
I'm getting kind of tired now.
I think I'm gonna
I'm
go
going
home.
to go home. And he ends his Apple Watch run.
What? How many years? 12, 13 year? 13-year run. Doot, done. And then
13 is CEO.
Yes.
He was there.
Oh, since the
long before that,
90s.
too.
Huh.
Yeah, he's been working at Apple for a very long time, and
If there's
I'm
anyone
sure
who's
he-
dedicated to Apple, it's definitely him.
I think he's older than Steve Jobs ever was.
Well, that's morbid thinking, but all right.
You know what Tim Cook could do that Steve Jobs never did?
Make it to 56.
How old was Steve? Let me do that.
I think he was 50,
Research.
56, 57, 55, something like that. He was young for an old guy.
Wow, yeah, he was 50. What did you just say? He was 56 when he passed.
Oh, yeah. He
And
made it.
Tim Cook,
Tim Cook can make it to 57. That's what he could do.
63. Wow.
Now he's just showing off.
He's Betty Whiting this leadership role.
I think.
Just listen to the doctors, Tim. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, I don't need him. I forget the girl's name. I don't need him to be another senator who's just Mitch McConnelling it. Whoa. just staring at the. He comes out. Good morning. Looking like SpongeBob at the Christmas party with his droopy nose, and it's just. I'm crying, Drew.
So, anyways, I think we could do a whole episode on whatever Tim Cook moves on to
Look at me.
retirement or a new role or anything like that.
I just visualized like
So-
the big Apple intro where it like transitions from the Apple logo visualizations and it zooms in on Apple Park and then it's just Mitch McConnell's.
It's just
And there's no music.
just. Someone's got to come up to him and just take him off the stage. I'm sweating through my eyes. Oh.
Okay. Mike, how's your fridge?
Great. It's fantastic. I love my fridge. It fills up that water pitcher so quickly. It's so fast at filling up water to where I don't even use the dispenser in the door. I just use the pitcher that fills up within like 90 seconds. It's amazing. I love this fridge. I need to do a review on this fridge, honestly. It's a fantastic fridge.
I know. I saw the comments saying like we were having a hard time waiting.
We need a status update on this fridge every week, apparently. And
They were
honestly,
like, I almost stopped listening because I didn't hear you talk about.
well, here's the treat for you, listeners and viewers. We're talking about the fridge at the end of this podcast. And boy, do I have to say, in the last, oh goodness, like 3 or 4 weeks that I've owned it, 0 problems.
Good.
Amazing. I just scooped up all the ice and put it into a ice bin. What is it called? A cooler. I put it into a cooler for this trip. Easy peasy. You can take the tray out. It's awesome. I love it.
Oh, that's wonderful. I'm so jealous, honestly.
You need to come see. You need to come see this thing, Randy. It's amazing. I love this fridge. You need to see it in action.
Come see it. All right.
Randy's having a moment, so I think we need to end it.
Any final words, final thoughts for you guys?
I really do hope the calculator couldn't even make it through it. I really hope the calculator app comes to the iPad this year.
Well,
I think there should
I'm
be term
really
limits for CEOs too.
How many years should someone be CEO? It's a good question.
Everything's been great with Tim. It's been awesome.
Whenever Tim Cook steps down, I want that to be the new age cap of like, all right, that's it for everybody. Whew.
Joke's on you. He makes it to 110.
That'd be impressive. Jeez.
Hey, he's got the Apple.
All right.
He can track everything.
I'm gonna pass out. There's not enough oxygen in Colorado to get the blood to my head.
Yeah, that amen, brother. That is the truth.
Mile High City.
We'll see y'all next week. Well, there will be no new news. Bye-bye.
Bye.